And away we go. So, good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone, wherever you happen to be in the world today. Welcome, one and all, to Coffee Talk. That is right, it is time for Coffee Talk Live. And we are live on YouTube at Coffee Talk Live and at Prepper University, simultaneously broadcasting on both channels at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter. Do find me there if you don't mind. And fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon under most circumstances. So away we go, as I say, as we get ready to dive into the news and see what is going on in the world today. And naturally, I do try to read through as many of the comments as is reasonable. For those of you who are listening and not able to see, so that you can keep up with the conversation, and I'll acknowledge some of the people that have chimed in on the live portion so far. See, Helter is here today. Dragon is here. Brian is here. Boogers is here. New York and Bernie is here. Glad you could make it. Thanks for joining us today as we get ready to jump off into the crazy world that gets smaller and smaller all the time thanks to technology. You hear about everything seconds after it happens nowadays. Oh, and for reference, got thoroughly trounced by ScrewTube yesterday as I went. And, after I'm done with the broadcast, I go and I look at the logistics, if you will, or the analytics, as they call it. And on the Prepper University channel, it demonstrated 1/3 of the average viewership. So that's literally like saying if I average 100 views for a podcast on Prepper University, yesterday I got about 34. 1/3 of the average views. They shaved 66% off. And I'm like, what the actual hell? What the actual hell is that all about? Seriously. But they're always messing with the channels. It doesn't surprise me, but it's frustrating and it's discouraging. They've discouraged many so-called content creators, because that's their term, over the years with their policies. Or the neighbor's car all the way out here. You probably heard that. I see Ragnar is here. All of their agenda-driven policies and all of their strikes and all of their warnings and all their everything else and pulling down videos and whatever else that they do, very, very frustrating. It's very, very frustrating. And, you can follow the money on that, because who is YouTube? Before we get into the first article here, who is YouTube? Well, YouTube is Google. Who is Google? Google is Alphabet Incorporated. Who is Alphabet Incorporated? Vanguard is who owns Alphabet Incorporated, which means that by default, all the way down the line, they own YouTube. And so there you go. They have an agenda that they're pushing, and they'll crush anyone who gets in their way. Now, this is something that has been coming up in the news a lot lately, and all the news outlets are talking about it. We're talking about him. And I think this is really interesting, and that's why I wanted to bring it up. This particular article is an ABC News article, ABC News, and it says, Democrats sound alarm on RFK Jr. and new running mate Shanahan. Okay. So I'll just read this real quick and I'll make my point. It says, Democrats are leaving no room for doubt on how they view former party colleague turned independent presidential candidate Robert F. Kennedy Jr. and his freshly minted vice presidential pick, deep-pocketed lawyer Nicole Shanahan, diversity hire, The pair are a danger to voters and present as a spoiler ticket destined to siphon votes from President Joe Biden and deliver the White House to former President Donald Trump. In a Democratic National Committee press call on Tuesday night, several party surrogates called Kennedy's presidential bid disgusting and a ploy to re-elect Trump. All he can do is take away votes from President Biden and make it easier for Trump to win. And we simply can't afford to let that happen, said Pennsylvania Lieutenant Governor Austin Davis. Yeah, can't let that happen. Sure. Michigan State Senator Mallory McMorrow said the Kennedy's ticket is disgusting and an abuse of our democracy. How's it an abuse of democracy for the man to run for president if he's eligible? And also notice that they keep using the word disgusting. Why has everybody got to say it's disgusting? Why is this suddenly news? Why are they talking about that Kennedy's taken votes away from Biden? Is it because you're afraid that Trump is going to win and that it'll distract from all those Biden voters? Remember, he allegedly won with 81 million votes, right? Or is it that you want Kennedy to win because you feel like Biden doesn't stand a chance and you're willing to work with Kennedy Jr. because he is a legacy born and bred politician? Kennedy says he's running independently and he's not considering himself a Democrat, but he is. He is. I've talked about him before. People have asked what I thought of him. I don't trust him. I've referenced the interview that I saw on Jason Whitlock, and I really don't feel like he answered any questions. He provided a lot of political rhetoric. And Spectre is here today. Glad you could make it, Spectre. That's what's going on here. I think this is another distraction. I don't think he's a distraction for Trump. I think he's a distraction for the Democratic Party and for Joe Biden. He's who they would rather have. And New York says MSM are trashing RFK Jr. because he's going to go after Vanguard, BlackRock, and State Street. Is he really, though? Is he really? I don't know that I trust him. Like I said, I've seen him in the interviews. He doesn't really answer questions. When I saw him on Jason Whitlock, all he kept doing is roundabout transferring the question into a statement about poor Black people and the C virus pandemic. On and on. And so New York emphasizes, so he says. Yeah, he says that. But is he really? I don't recall any president really deliberately butting heads with the heads or owners of major corporations since Teddy Roosevelt. Theodore Roosevelt had huge problems with that. He didn't like those guys, and he made no bones about it, and he caused them a lot of headache. Has a president really done that since? I mean, sure, you can bring Zuckerberg in to be interviewed by congressional committee, and so what? I mean, that's all bread and circus nowadays. They're not going to really do anything to these people. They're not going to really run them down. Spectre says, be aware if you have a storage unit, expect a rent increase. His just got jacked up 100%. Wow. You wouldn't think so. All they do is build around here. All they do is build gas stations and storage units. Like, how much junk do people have? And if you've watched Hoarders, you know they have a lot of junk. Not saying you have a lot of junk, Spectre, but you know what I mean. If you've ever looked at any of those storage lockers when they have like sales when they're selling the abandoned lockers and stuff. They're full of garbage. It's not like on Storage Wars. The show's rigged anyways. I've talked about that before. I saw an interview with the guy from Storage Wars who said that it destroyed his business, and that, you know, he'll buy 28 lockers and they'll show 2 of them, and the stuff's not even that good. Most of the time it's all like Christmas ornaments and lawn furniture and baby clothes and crap. New York says they don't remember any president doing that either. Yeah. It was Theodore Roosevelt. He made a big, huge deal. He didn't like the idea of a company having more money than the federal government. And a cult says they got their storage unit yesterday. I've got to haul all my stuff there and moved out by April 3rd. Okay, so something happened to you, occult, or you got to move? As we shift around here, now this is another one that's been big in the news too. We're going to jump to New York here. We're going to talk about Donald Trump really briefly, and you already know this story, but I wanted to make a point about it. If it loads up properly here, Newsweek article, jumping to Manhattan, New York. It says Manhattan ruling is a big win for Donald Trump, as they talk about his payment, about his bond. It says Trump Tower remains mine. Former president and near certain 2024 GOP candidate Donald J. Trump said in an email to supporters on Monday evening, because this article is, it's getting old now. It's a few days old. Earlier that day, a New York State appeals court moderated the heavy penalties imposed last month in a ruling by Manhattan Supreme Court Justice Arthur Engoron. The appeals court reduced the $454 million bond, which included interest, due on Monday to $175 million, which permitted Trump Organization executives, including Trump and his sons Donald Jr. and Eric, to conduct business in New York while the appeal proceeds, and allow Trump and his real estate holding company to continue applying for loans from New York financial institutions. Trump was given 10 days to make the reduced payment and has to file his appeal by September. His businesses must operate in New York under a state business monitor and compliance officer. Had the appeals court not intervened, Trump, who said he could not raise the $454 million by Monday deadline, faced forfeiture of real estate properties in Manhattan and neighboring Westchester County. All right. Now, what's significant about this? What's significant about it is that they reversed their decision on the bond. They reversed their decision on the bond. So if you're willing to reverse your decision on the bond and reduce it by that much, then does the bond actually hold water in the first place? Why even impose a bond if the bond doesn't matter? And rather than let him face the penalty, which they would have done to you or me, said, oh, well, you know what? Yeah, $454 million. Don't worry about it. We'll make it 175. How about that? So how seriously can we take the case that was against him to begin with? How seriously can we take that? I didn't take any of it very seriously to begin with, because I believe, isn't this the case about overvaluing a building or something? Or overvaluing real estate property, which everybody does? Hell, the county overvalues your property when they assess your taxes, if they can, to squeeze the most out of it that they can, to get the most tax money from you. If you put a property, a house, a boat, a car up for sale, pretty much everybody overvalues it. Almost nobody's going to try to undersell. The case is preposterous. And the fact that they're willing to alter their bond kind of expresses that, I think. I just wanted to throw that out there. Just wanted to throw that out there. But a lot of the cases that have been against him are ridiculous. The case that's in Atlanta from Fani Willis trying to accuse him of being an election denier. Oh, it's insurrection. He's a traitor to his country because he said that he was hoping to find more votes. There's no case there. It should have been thrown out a long time ago, especially after everything that's been revealed about Fani Willis. And then you have the other issues like what was the other case? It's absolutely ridiculous. The one about the hush money case. It's not illegal. No one has ever been brought to court for hush money that's been legally presented corporately like how he did. If the fact that they're even willing to take him to court for it sets a precedence. It's absolutely ridiculous that this goes on. And that's the weaponization of the law. That's what's been going on. And again, it helps people to really empathize with Trump, because a lot of us have felt like we've been screwed over in court or legally or by the Justice Department or by a detective or somebody. And we can look at that and say, yeah, you know what? I totally get where he's coming from. This is a load of crap that they're doing this to Trump. I totally see it. And there's Zane. Zane has joined us here today. Unknown says their condo's overvalued considering there's foundation cracking and roof problems. It's almost worthless in my honest opinion. Really? I think all condos are overvalued. Sven says Trump is an indicator species. And Zane thinks electric cars have solved the freeze problem. Have they? Time will tell. But we're jumping to Atlanta here. USA Today article, I believe. Video shows Cop City activists chain themselves to the top of a 250-foot crane at the Atlanta site. And there is a video of this. It says 2 protesters who climbed a 250-foot crane at an Atlanta construction site and attached their arms with duct tape were subsequently arrested. Seriously? All right, I got a lot to say about this. The Atlanta Police Department released video showing how officials used a cutting tool to remove the tape attached to the reinforced pipes and help the demonstrators down. The site is at the construction of a public safety training center being built in a forest near Atlanta that many protesters are calling Cop City. That's not correct, but I'll get to it. In a coordinated effort, Atlanta police and fire rescue teams were compelled to intervene and remove 2 anarchists who have scaled construction equipment to protest the construction of the Atlanta Public Safety Training Center. Video shows officials speaking to the pair up above while the crowd is heard cheering below. If they love you, they wouldn't have you up 100 feet in the air. That's not love, one official tells the protesters. It's not love to fall backwards or to fall down there. It's instant death. The protesters are seen cooperating with officials as they are brought down safely wearing harnesses. Officials are heard offering medical resources to the duo in case they needed help. The 2 activists were transmogrified women who climbed the crane to bring attention to the violence transmogrified people have faced in Atlanta. When? An anti-transmogrified legislation within the Georgia legislature dropped Cop City, said in a news release. Yeah, okay. Wow. So they're not even chained or anything. It says, because this is misleading. This is USA Today for you. First, it says activists chained themselves to the top of the 250-foot crane. Then you read the story and found out that somebody duct taped them. They're not chained at all. Then there's this misconception. It says training center, this is a quote out of the article, being built in a forest near Atlanta. It's not. It's a public park that's called Forest, but it's not a forest. And as I've explained before, there's already law enforcement buildings there, including 2 correctional facilities and other buildings. And so they figured it would just be cheaper to just go ahead and put another building there since they already own the land. And I don't see how that has anything to do with the transmogrified community or what the hell they think they're doing. And my opinion of it is, shit, I'd have left him up there. I would have left him up there. And I've told the story before. I've told the story before about how in Massachusetts in the early 90s, or Boston, Brookline actually, more specifically, there was a clinic associated with an abortion clinic that protesters chained themselves to cars out in front, and the mayor said, leave them there. Leave them there. Don't cut them away this time. And they gave up and left on their own. I'd have left them up there. That's just me. Unknown says, if you want to make an anarchist leave the room, discuss an anarchist who calls himself Hakeem Bey. And New York wants to know what's transmogrified. That's the term. That's one of the terms I use instead of saying what they are, which is a male claiming to be female, as the case may be, because certain buzzwords trigger the AI that monitors the channel on ScrewTube. So I use the other terms, transmission, transmogrified, things like that, so that the algorithm doesn't kick me in the teeth as bad as they normally do. Helter says, what gets me is that I'm entitled to endanger the lives of rescue workers by them slipping and falling. Those rescue workers could be saving someone else instead of these clowns. And WCM says, sick of the right, left, red, blue programming propaganda. And New York says, that's a heck of a pickle to put yourself in. Yeah. And a cult says, yeah, stuff happened with his roommate. I guess we don't politically see eye to eye anymore. Ouch. Okay. And Unknown says, there's a 6-acre forest down the road for me. It's an overgrown parcel, almost completely covered by endangered species, mostly Brazilian prepper, and the actual ground beneath is a 100% man-made. And WCM said, ScrewTube is 100% right for transmission. You use the word Bruce Jenner. Okay. And Monkey is joining late. That's all right, Monkey. Glad you could make it. But I'm just so tired of the whole so-called cop city thing. I'm tired of the protesters. Again, the city was trying to save money by building next to existing law enforcement buildings on their own property next to a public park called a forest. And protesters are coming from all over the country and all over the planet to come down there and stir up mess. They're not even from Georgia. They're not even from Georgia. They've shot at police out there. They've thrown rocks. They've thrown bricks. One of the protesters was killed last year because there was a shootout with law enforcement out there. And they're arresting them, and they're from other states. They're from France. They're from Canada. It's like, what the hell are you doing here? What the hell are you doing here? Go protest in your own country. You don't have anything to protest where you are? Who's bringing these people in to do this? And if they don't build it there, they'll be forced to buy land somewhere else and then still build it. And it's not just a law enforcement thing. They're calling it Cop City, but the primary function of it was supposed to be, I believe it was supposed to be for fire department training. But there's also going to be a training area for police as well. There's a training area not too far from where I am that's like way up in the woods where they've got abandoned school buses and some shanties that they built up where they train police dogs to attack people. And when I put I put a short up on Prepper University a while back where I was like, what is this, mortar fire? It was coming from that area. It was all them flashbangs going off out there because people were like, that's fireworks. You don't know what you're talking about. I know what it was. They were launching things out there as one of their training exercises deep in the woods there. I don't see anyone out there protesting anything. No one ever goes out there. We're still in Atlanta, or we're still in Georgia anyways, and this is a local story, and I thought this was interesting, and I'll tell you why in a moment. If it ever loads. Here it comes. I know sometimes it gets a little wonky. I apologize for the confusion, but that's Restream for you. And this is a Fox 5 local, it says Fox 5 Atlanta, local news. And it's not that critical, but I thought it was interesting. And like I said, I'll tell you why. It says Georgia Waffle House workers are striking over mandatory meal credit deductions. So there you go. Georgia Waffle House workers hit the picket line on Monday to call for better working conditions, pay raises, and an end to a company meal credit policy. In a statement, the Union of Southern Service Workers and Metro Atlanta Waffle House employees said the company deducts at least $3 from workers' pay every shift for the credit, no matter if the employee has a meal or not. The union estimated the nationwide policy could total nearly $30 million deducted from workers annually. Quote, hold still. If Waffle House thinks they can keep getting away with docking our pay for meals we don't eat, they clearly don't understand the power we've built in our union, said Cindy Smith, a worker at Atlanta area Waffle House. We show up every day and work hard for as little as $2.90 an hour before tips, so losing $3 every shift does real damage. We're fed up and we're going on strike to demand that Waffle House end the policy across the country, listen to us and make changes that will help us keep us safe on the job and help us provide for our families. And it says 13,000 workers have signed a petition to the U.S. Department of Labor demanding federal government investigate the meal credit policy. All right. Now, I'll tell you a few things I understand about this and why I'll be surprised if they get anywhere with it. Why I'll be surprised if they get anywhere with this. Number one, as you all know, tipping in restaurants is a very American thing. Okay? It's a very American thing. They don't do this in other countries. But because you get gratuities, that's why there's a separate wait staff wage in the United States. And believe me, there's a lot of unreported tips that go through. All right. Number two, $2.90 or $3, $2.90, $3 for a meal credit. If none of you ever worked in a restaurant like this, that is a long-standing practice across the board. When I worked in the International House of Pancakes way back in like 1984, I think, they did that. They all do it. They deduct an hour's pay for meals because they know you're going to eat. And these people are going to eat the food there, or whether we eat a meal or not. I promise you everybody gets a meal. All right. They're eating something or drinking something all day. And that's why they do that. Thirdly, Waffle House doesn't quite have the income to support too many raises. They really don't. A lot of restaurants, especially like this, have a tremendous overhead with food waste. So they probably can't afford it, honestly. Fourth, Georgia's a right-to-work state. Unions are optional. They can fire all those people or let them quit and replace them pretty quickly. And the union can't do anything about it. Unknown says, I knew that would happen. Jack up wages and lose perks. Yeah. Zane doesn't like tipping. And New York confirms, yeah, they all do it. And like I said, that's a long-standing thing. When I worked for Waffle House when I was a teenager, or Waffle International House of Pancakes. Now I'm doing it. International House of Pancakes in Brookline, Massachusetts. I don't know if it's still there. I don't know if it's still there, but whatever. Oh, and I got my prompt. It is 2:30, and I just now got a notification that I am live. Thank you, ScrewTube, for staying on top of that so that people know that I'm in the live podcast 30 minutes after the fact. I wonder if there's any way to get them to speed that up, because that's ridiculous. New York says Friendly's, Applebees. Is Friendly's still on the East Coast? Is that Dragon says, great, that would mean my waffles and hash browns will now cost 18 instead of 12. Those workers don't seem to understand the meaning of entry-level jobs. No, because they make a career out of it. But this struck me as interesting for a bunch of reasons, as I've spelled out there just now. It's a right-to-work state. They don't have to listen to the union at all. You all want to walk out, we got a stack of applications, because that's that kind of job. Waffle House, they got the thing right on the door. They're always hiring, and this is why. Because a lot of people can't cut it. They don't like it. It's just a simple entry-level job or part-timer, extra thing, whatever. Take it or don't. That's how it is. And again, they all do the meal credit thing. And you're getting the wait staff pay because of gratuities. And again, this is a United States thing. That's you don't see that in other countries, really. And Unknown says last Friendly's is in Southeast Florida, closed several years ago. Really? But then New York says there are still some around. I remember they had a few Friendly's, a couple in Massachusetts when I was still living there. There was one in Brighton, Massachusetts, and I forget where the other one was. I wanted to say Waltham, but I don't think that's right. I only remember there being like 2 or 3 around. But yeah, I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised at all that they're closing up or they're gone. And here we go. Fox News article coming up. Something about Alec Baldwin, and I'm only mentioning this because I have a question about it. I have a question about this. Just my own opinion on this article, because as you know, the armorer, is it funny? Waiting to boot up properly, and it's being sluggish. It's being sluggish. I'm sorry about that. And I think it's because of the video clips in some of these. And I try to pause it to keep it from skipping around. So there we go. Fox News article, Alec Baldwin's Rust armorers demand for a new trial, uphill battle following conviction. And this is what I find interesting about this, because as you know, the armorer has been convicted. It says Hannah Gutierrez, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right. Hannah Gutierrez Reed's demands for a new trial after being convicted of involuntary manslaughter will be an uphill battle. The Rust armorer will return to court Friday to argue for a new trial and an immediate release from prison. Gutierrez Reed faces up to 18 months in prison, in addition to a $5,000 fine after a jury convicted her of involuntary manslaughter in early March in the shooting of Helena Hutchins on the set of Rust. Gutierrez Reed, and again, I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, has an uphill battle both in her motion and her new trial and eventual appeal. Former federal prosecutor Niyama Rahamani told Fox News Digital, though the judge ruled that the jurors have to be unanimous in the manslaughter charge, there were 2 They did not have to be unanimous on how the live round got on set. That is generally a correct statement of the law. He added the verdict has to be unanimous, but not how the jurors get there. All right. And what I find interesting about this is that, okay, she was the armorer. She was inexperienced anyways, and probably shouldn't have been doing the job. I'll put that there first. She was the armorer. As many of you might be aware, in TV and movies, they use real guns. They're not props. They use real firearms with blank ammunition. Also, it has been revealed Alec Baldwin, number one, brought live ammo. He's really super squishy liberal and anti-gun, but brought live ammo for him and his buddies to play with. This is what I've heard, as well as the fact that he was being irresponsible with the firearm anyways, pointing it at people and pulling the trigger, thinking he's funny, but oops, there was a live round. So Alec Baldwin is irresponsible, and she takes the hit and faces 18 months in prison because she missed one of the live bullets that was brought onto the set, and gets a manslaughter charge, or involuntary. It should at least be involuntary, right? Did I read that? Yeah, involuntary manslaughter, it says. Has Baldwin even had a day in court, or did I miss it? Did I miss that? I'm curious. Monkey says he saw in the news California fast food places are laying off workers due to a huge increase in minimum wage. Yeah, we read that earlier in the week. Might have been Monday. That I was not surprised at all that it was going to come down to that, because again, many restaurants operate with a huge overhead due to food, the amount of food that has to be disposed of, and the cost of cooking it and all of that. That's why many restaurants, they end up just folding up one day, like Bennigan's. One day you go to your local Bennigan's and the door's chained up. I remember when they shut them all down instantly. The employees didn't even know. Monkey says last week his son and him had breakfast in Geneva, Illinois restaurant, 60 plus a 20% tip. Yeah, that you pay the automatic gratuity. Never pay the automatic gratuity. You got to adjust it. And Zane says they shifted the blame to the armorer. Yeah. Thank you, Ragnar. He says Gutierrez. Gutierrez. Yeah, I wasn't sure if I was pronouncing that right. But yeah, like I said, people have explained that to play around, target practice, screwing around off camera, playing with the guns, Alec Baldwin and his buddies, even though he's a bleeding heart liberal and wants to take your firearms away, and was being irresponsible anyways. If you're not in action, because they weren't filming, they weren't doing anything, he was just like, hey man, gotcha, screwing around, and actually shot someone and wounded someone else too, right? Helter says, I'm curious how they will argue Alec Baldwin is responsible. Most stars who are producers on their own films are not usually the producers handling the logistical aspects of the project. And New York said that's some serious BS for her to be held solely responsible. And so far, she's the only person I've seen get any kind of conviction. And like I said, she was kind of a diversity hire in a manner of speaking. I know that's getting to be the new phrase here, diversity hire. She was really inexperienced. And I think he hired her so he could say, oh, look, we get a female armorer. Because that's been floated as well. But she was inexperienced at the job. But, I mean, is she supposed to run around and double check everybody's gun after they've been screwing with it? This is every bit or as much Alec Baldwin's fault. I'm sure he didn't mean to shoot someone for real, but he was being very irresponsible. He was being very irresponsible. Eric says, don't you love restaurants that swivel the terminal around when paying, asking for a tip while they stare at you even before you get service? Oh man. Hey, if I go to a place and there's nobody there, there ain't going to be a tip, period. I know a lot of people don't even like that practice, but it's come to be expected in the United States again. And I've pointed it out before that, one of the things my wife and I used to like to do from time to time is go to Steak and Shake. And we get some of their seasoned fries and a grilled cheese sandwich and a couple of shakes. And we just sit there and split it and talk and hang out. And the last couple of times we went to do that, and it's been a while. The last couple of times we went to do that, there was nobody there. It's all kiosks up front. You serve yourself because they call your number and you come up and you get it from a counter or a window. But it wants a gratuity. And I'm like, who the hell am I giving the gratuity to? Nobody met us at the door. Nobody seated us. Nobody cleared our table. Nobody brought us our food. Who's getting a tip? Who gets a tip? Are you serious? I'm not doing that. A cult says a restaurant work sucks. I've worked in food service most of my life. If California is laying off due to increasing minimum wage, will anything really ever pull that state out of the drain? Yeah, the total destruction of that state, which is what I believe. Again, that's my big tinfoil hat conspiracy theory of the year, that California lawmakers are deliberately destroying the state because they have some kind of arrangement with the people that are buying up large parcels of cheap abandoned land, abandoned buildings, abandoned entire blocks. I think that's what's going on. That those lawmakers, that they've got something going on there. Now, I'm sure some of you have seen this next little bit that we got coming up there. And Monkey says a few years ago when they moved before the beer virus, there were people that served you food, and the whole beer virus, it's very few people in the Steak and Shake. Yeah, it's whoever's behind the counter now. So that's what I mean. It's like, who am I tipping? Why should I tip and nobody's there? And New York says kitchen staff do most of the work, yet the person who carries the food to the table gets the tip, ? Kitchen staff are on a different salary base than wait staff. And some places, and I know they did this in International House of Pancakes again, the waitresses are the ones that got the tips. When I worked there, I was a busboy, and I got I was getting paid straight minimum wage, not wait staff minimum wage, but I got something like 5%, and I don't know if the kitchen staff did. I don't know if the kitchen staff did or not, but this is a video clip that I wanted to run. And this is the protests that are taking place. Oh, that's too big. I opened it up too big. Hold on a second. The protest that took place outside of President Biden's rally, because as you know, Biden and Trump went to New York, or in the New York area. Trump went to a funeral or a wake. Was it a wake or a funeral? I think it was a wake. And then Biden went to a fundraiser and rubbed elbows with Obama and collected tons of money from all of his big Democratic supporters, because that's what they do. They throw money at each other. And there was a massive protest outside of where he was. And they were pro-Palestinian protesters. And there's so much to say about this clip. It's 1.5 minutes long. I probably won't play the whole thing. But for those of you who can see it, let me pull that up here. I don't even have it pulled up. You can take a look at this real quick, and we'll listen to what's being said. And there's a lot to consider with this. So check this out.
We're on the sidewalk! We're on the sidewalk! We're on the sidewalk! We're on the sidewalk! We're on the sidewalk!
this?
We're escalating. We're escalating. We're escalating. We're on the sidewalk. We're on the sidewalk. Wheelchair! 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 Watch out!
That is complete chaos. If you can see this. Now, for those of you who can't see, obviously that's so-called pro-Palestinian protesters out in front of Biden's fundraiser, raising Cain. And they're pushing the cops and they're fighting with the cops. And you heard the guy with the bullhorn chanting, "We're on the sidewalk, we're on the sidewalk, you are escalating." And there's so much to be said about this. There's so much to be said about this. First of all, and you could clearly see those officers were getting shoved, that female in particular, because she was up front. And that's why she says, "Hey, watch it, stop, back up." If you heard her talking, she was getting pushed. The officers were getting pushed and shoved around. He's chanting, "You are escalating." Actually, no, you're escalating. If you're putting your hands on the law enforcement officers, you're giving them an excuse to retaliate. Also, that whole we're on the sidewalk, so what? The premise there is, or the assumption, I'm on the sidewalk, I'm in a public place, and I have the liberty to be here if I want to. I can be on the sidewalk and do whatever I want. No, I'm afraid not. Yeah, that's the mentality of someone who believes that we have freedom, and we don't. It's something I've talked about many, many times. We don't have freedom. We have privileges. One of those privileges is that you can be in a public space under normal circumstances. So yeah, you're allowed to be on the sidewalk until they tell you that you can't be there. And in this particular case, there's executive privilege because Biden is there. Biden is there. He is the president. There is an imagined circle around him. Their presence, even on the sidewalk, violates that circle. And legally, they can tell them to disperse. And the organizers of these things know this. They know this, but they're counting on the fact that no one else knows it. And no one's going to bother to research it or look it up. And so people will watch that and say, "Oh, yeah, they were on the sidewalk. They can protest." Not really. Not really. Not really. Zane says George Carlin talked about it. Yeah. And Booger says he heard the most expensive plate at Biden's fundraiser was $500,000. Who in their right mind pays $500,000 to see that joker? People that are in with the in crowd, people that are bought in, people that are connected. And this is something else that makes him look really bad. I mean, and Trump took a stab at him too when he went to, was it a wake or a funeral? Somebody clue me in because I want to say it was a wake, but Trump said, even just as a matter of protocol, you go anyway just to be respectful, whether you want to or not. Taking a stab at Biden. Raccoon says, makes me sick, deport those idiots. Yeah, I wish. And Unknown says it's fun watching them protest each other. Because they don't know what they're protesting. Where's the fool killer when you need him? The third version of the fool killer from Marvel Comics during Desert Storm, or was it still the Operation Desert Eagle? It might have been still Desert Eagle. Killed people on both sides of the protest line because they were all fools, is what he said. And Papa Bear says it was a wake for a police officer. Yeah, I knew it was a police officer, but I couldn't remember if it was a wake or a funeral. Specifically, and I wanted to get it right. Thank you, Papa Bear. But yeah, this is absolutely just asinine. And right there, for those of you who couldn't see, they were carrying that female officer out. So something happened to her. Something happened to her. The two police were just carrying her away. But this is absolute chaos, and it's embarrassing. It's embarrassing. They love that. They love Palestine so much, they need to go there. Go over there and protest and see how it works out for you. Everybody always wants to protest where it's nice and safe. Protest where it's nice and safe. Yeah. And then they're protesting Biden. What do you want Biden to do? What do you think he's supposed to do? What do you want from him? What do you expect him to accomplish? Why should he help you? Why should he help you? It's amazing. We have all these people that live in this country that act like they hate this country so much, yet they won't leave. They won't leave. Anyways, boogers, again, getting back to your comment about the 500,000 per plate. As much as 500,000 a plate. Can you imagine just having that kind of money to throw around? Oh yeah, I'll sit at a dinner and that you probably don't even want to be at anyways because it's probably boring as hell. Boring as hell. $500,000. I'll cook you dinner for $500,000. I'll make you a nice plate of food. I mean, holy crap. Oh no. Unknown says, I can't afford to eat at any place where tips are accepted, so problem solved. Mostly you should be eating at home anyways. We rarely go out to eat. I don't think we've been out to eat for months. Raccoon says they love our money and not our country. Correct. Absolutely, Raccoon. And Occult says, dang right to put them onto the same planes we're flying illegals. Oh, I skipped up a little bit there. On and ship them back over to the countries we are, quote unquote, importing illegals from. I would love to throw them out. I would love to throw them all out. And that's my argument. That's been my argument since all of this started. It would be cheaper to deport them. It would be cheaper to repatriate them, as they like to say politically correctly, back to their country of origin. And hey, as many times as you have to kick them back to where they came from, keep putting them back, keep sending them back, to hell with them, until they get the message. This is why before Biden signed the executive order tying the hands of Border Patrol on day one of presidency, the average was about 800 a day at the border, or less, 600 to 800, if I remember correctly. New York says they were head cook for many years. They get an hourly wage minus much taxes, Social Security. It would almost always equal 1/3 of what wait staff walked out with in cash from the same shift. Yeah. And Brian made a donation to the channel. It says Sheba Dog shouting good luck in a megaphone. Well, thanks for the donation, Brian. Very much appreciated. Goes a long way, as always, to helping us take care of our felines. I have one in here. Miss Granny Smith, knocked out on the floor there. She looks like she's out cold. No one else in the room with me, though. I'm all by myself. All by myself. Eric says with Trump, it feels that even though with his extreme wealth, he is still down with the people. He speaks like the people. He worked with construction his whole life, not the stooges for 500,000 a plate. Yeah. And he was beloved all the way up until he ran for president. Everybody loved that guy. Then all of a sudden he was the enemy. He was the enemy of the people. And he is the guy that, regardless of being extremely wealthy, multimillionaire, billionaire, whatever, it was not unheard of to see him walking the streets in New York, to see him out and about, to see him catching a cab, to see him talking to people. So he's not as out of touch as you would suspect, like most of these other people who are extremely wealthy, or people that are in certain positions like politicians or whatever. You think Bernie Sanders is in touch with the common man? Not by a long shot. You think Oprah Winfrey is? You think Oprah Winfrey's been in touch with the common man since she was a teenager? I mean, you see my point. This is a guy that you would see out there. And he was a big deal and well known. I can't remember. My wife and I watch a lot of vintage television, and one of the things we like to watch is old game shows. You'd be surprised how often he is the subject of one of the quiz questions on an old game show. And the answer is Donald Trump. But this is what we go. Zane said Sweden's trying to force immigrants to integrate and assimilate into Swedish culture. They should. They should. And New York says, I switched to learning masonry and never looked back. Well, hey, decent trade. And Rodney is here, and Rodney made a donation to the channel. Thank you also, Rodney. Very, very much appreciated. I always appreciate it. I'm not going to be like, oh God, what is that guy's name? Because I've quoted him before. The Stefan Molyneux. I've mentioned him before because he had a whole 15-minute video bitching about somebody making a $5 donation to his channel once. Carrying on and on. If you really appreciated the channel, then how could you do this? And it's like, dude, it's $5 more than you had. Shut up. How can you complain? How can you complain when someone's reaching out to you like that? Man, I don't know. I don't know. And Unknown says we have 3 local and locally owned restaurants on our bucket list. Beyond that, we cook at home. Yesterday was gluten-free fried catfish. Can't even get it at restaurants. Yeah, I don't eat catfish. I don't eat catfish. My wife does do proper fish and chips, though, which, of course, it should be made with cod. Nice, thick pieces of cod. She does a great job with it. My wife is actually a really good cook. And New York says, great show again today. Anticipating getting at the top of the hour. Are you, New York? Yes, we're getting very close to that. And Brian says, some gratitude, Stefan. Yeah, I know. I couldn't believe it. That's when I stopped watching him. I used to watch some of his videos, and this was years ago. This is like maybe 5 years ago or something. I used to watch some of Stefan's stuff, and when he did that, and it's like, how are you going to dedicate a whole video bitching and moaning about someone donating to your channel because it wasn't enough? Who does that? Who does that? That's just really... It lacks grace. Have some appreciation, because people don't have to do that. They don't have to do that. Have a little gratitude, a little grace. And Zane said some channels treat donation like taxes. And Monkey there, he says if someone donated like $5 but included a TOS breaking name or comment, then it's half appreciated but half disgusted with the name and or comment. Okay. And Monkey says if it's just regular donation and it's nice, then yeah, be appreciated. You even get money at all. Yeah, sure. And Zane says you must pay to message and you must pay your channel tax. And it's also in live portions. I know I've seen it on a lot of channels when people are doing a live, they'll ignore you unless you donated to the channel, and then they read your comment. And I'm not trying to be that stuck up. I try to give everybody a shot. If there's a lot of comments, I'll skip a few, whatever. But I try to at least acknowledge everybody who was able to come in as the best I can, just to show appreciation. And Occult said, what kind of moron whines about getting free money in Biden's economy? Well, he is in Canada, to be fair. But with that, we are at the top of the hour. One more look at Granny Smith there. I'm sorry she's asleep, or else I'd snatch her up there. And Rodney says that their previous comment was deleted. Really? I'm sorry to hear that. I know. They do that. They do police. The AI does police the comments section. And that is unfortunate. That is an unfortunate reality of the situation. But yeah, we are at the top of the hour. Again, this is Coffee Talk, or at Coffee Talk Live, and at Prepper University on YouTube, simultaneously broadcasting live at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Monday through Friday, as well as at Coffee Talk Chat on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I can put up more aggressive tweets from time to time that I cannot show here, as well as Fistful of Radio. That's right, fistfulofradio.com, podcasting out of Atlanta Monday through Thursday at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time and Friday at noon. So again, special thanks to Rodney and to Brian, who made donations to the channel today. Always appreciate it. Appreciate everyone else for joining us here today. As always, hope you got something out of the conversation, and we will catch you again on Monday.